for those tuning in, I am always privileged to connect with my amazing, illustrious, irreplaceable friend, Jess Craven. Thank you for being part of this conversation.
I'm so happy to be here. We're having a very hot day in Los Angeles, and we don't typically turn on our air conditioning unless we're really dying. So you pardon the ponytail and the skimpy clothes. I'm just trying to.
You're fine. You're fantastic. We're actually finally getting some normal weather in Chicago. It's been monsoon season apparently, to the point where everyone's basement flooded really
Oh,
bad. And we're finally getting some decent weather where it's like in the 70s. And thank God, because it was bad. I have friends of mine who have spent the last 3, 4 days pumping water out of their basement. It was that bad.
I don't know how I missed that. It's really hard to keep up with weather news. There's just so much of it, and it's all really alarming. So,
I know. I know. Well, my birth country of Pakistan is going through a major monsoon right now, and a significant portion of the country is flooded. Which, it's another example of a country that actually has a very small carbon footprint, but is suffering the consequences of climate change due to glaciers melting and
yes,
melting into Pakistan. So, well, a lot to cover. We got a nice critical mass of a couple hundred people tuning in. We want to cover a lot of things today,
yeah.
including the military occupation of DC, the Epstein Files gerrymandering. But let's start with Palestine. And Jess, we were just talking briefly, if you want to dive in, on the UN declaring famine in Gaza today.
Yeah. Well, this is, not far from my area of expertise, more yours, I would say, but I was glad to see that an actual famine was declared. Not that we thought there wasn't a famine, because it's been abundantly clear, and this has been predicted for, what, a year?
Yeah.
I mean, at least, right? This has been building, but it is very nice to see the word famine being officially used. It's incredibly frustrating to see the Netanyahu government immediately coming out and saying that's a lie.
Yeah.
It's really, even people trying to give, them the benefit of the doubt, I would think, which at this point I am not one of those people, but I would think would be, it's really hard to understand how they continually just say that, up is down and down is up. There's no famine happening there when we all have access to media. Anyway,
Yeah.
good that we're hearing about it. Bad that the Trump administration is still in charge and still doesn't care, as we know.
Yeah.
So, we all have to keep making a great deal of noise about this because, frankly, the party most to blame, other than the Netanyahu government itself, is us, is our government.
That's right. That's right. And it's unfortunately a bipartisan failure. Right now, Trump is making it far worse. But Matthew Miller just came out with a statement earlier today, admitting that even though the Biden administration saw Netanyahu blocking hostage deals, they didn't want to call it out publicly because they were afraid that would help Hamas. Now, it's insane for him to admit that. It's even more insane for the Biden administration to basically be afraid of optics when recognizing that Netanyahu was the one blocking the hostage deals. And I thought about this earlier today. An Israeli scholar just came out with a report in Harvard University a few months ago, maybe about a month ago, saying that according to his estimates, the Israeli military has killed 377,000 Palestinians. 377,000. It's way more than the estimates of 60 to 70,000. This is an
Right.
Israeli scholar saying this. The Israeli military memos just came out a few days ago admitting that at least 83% of the Palestinians killed are civilians. At least 83%. Another Israeli memo reported by the New York Times just a week ago admit that Hamas has stolen zero aid in any kind of systematic way
Yeah.
at all. So it's a complete lie. Israeli hostage negotiators are now on record saying that it is Netanyahu, not Hamas, who keeps breaking and preventing and blocking these hostage deals. And now, as you just said, that the UN report confirms that Gaza is suffering famine. And the point is that this is genocide. There's no question about it. And my one appreciation to voices like yours, Jess, because you have a large platform and you've been unapologetic about this since day one, and my similar just infuriation with our elected officials who continue to arm this madman, even though we know he's committing some of the world's worst atrocities.
Yeah.
I've said this to folks who are chiefs of staff for powerful politicians of the Democratic Party, and I say it should be a wake up call to you that 77% of Democrats before the 2024 election said, stop funding Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And the party didn't listen. It should be a wake up call that 92% of Democrats now, 92% are saying, stop funding Netanyahu. And the party isn't listening. And just to put that in perspective, and I'll throw it back to you after this comment, 92% is about how many Democrats support reproductive health access.
Yeah.
That's about how many Democrats support universal background checks. That's about how many Democrats support ending Citizens United. That's about how many Democrats support protecting the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
On any of those issues, could you imagine a Democrat running and saying, you know what, abortion access, not that important. Gun
Yeah.
safety, who cares?
Yeah.
Getting corporate money out of politics, not a big deal. You could never imagine that. So why on this issue do you think that politicians in the Democratic Party, like we know Republicans are fascists. I'm not even talking about them. I'm not even trying to appeal to their better angels. They've
Sure.
made clear that they are not to be trusted. But how can you be a Democratic politician who says that you care about human rights, about democracy, about working people, have 92% of your base say, hey, here's the thing we really care about, and then just give them the middle finger? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it makes sense. Two-word answer. I think it's AIPAC money. I really do. I mean, I think that, and look, there's a lot of corporate PAC money out there. There's a lot of dark money. It's all really awful. But AIPAC, coming from another country with whom we also have all of this, entanglement and military involvement, it's a next level of fucked upness, if you excuse the phrase. But like,
Right.
it is Adam Schiff, who I greatly respect in some ways. I really try not to paint people as either all bad or all good. He's got his really positive traits, but $6 million that guy's taken from AIPAC. So what, 3 weeks ago, standing and posing with Netanyahu, Alex Padilla's taken like $2 million. All of these lawmakers, it's the same reason that Hakeem Jeffries will not endorse Zoran Mamdani, even though I'm sure that in his heart of hearts, he likes him. I don't know why he wouldn't. What's not to like? I bet he wants to. And he can't. And that's why you feel this weird stiffness from him, because I feel like he is going against his inner instincts because he is being given a massive amount of money and his entire party. I mean, look, dark money, both sides, huge problem. But I do feel like the AIPAC money specifically is hanging over the Democrats like a sword of Damocles. And until we say no more AIPAC, no more dark money, no more PAC money,
You're right.
whatever, we'd have to go in stages. But I think that is the reason, in answer to your question. Because otherwise there's no logic to it at all. It just makes no sense.
None. And you're exactly right, Jess. And I'm going to be putting out links pretty soon. I'm going to be fundraising for candidates for midterm. And I'm only going to be raising money for candidates who are adamant of no more weapons to the Netanyahu regime and who recognize that this is a genocide. Otherwise, I'm just not interested in your platitudes. And, Professor Ta-Nehisi Coates talked about this. He said, we keep getting asked if the Democratic Party is going to be strong enough to defend democracy. And I would submit to you that if they weren't strong enough to stop genocide, then what makes you think they're going to be strong enough to stand up to democracy? And that's really the point, because all these things are tied together. What we're allowing to happen in Gaza is why ICE has $11 billion, or is the 11th largest military with $150 billion, and they're building these concentration camps. It's why this alligator Alcatraz, I don't even like saying the name, it's why it exists. It's why Trump is trying to militarily occupy Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and probably more blue cities. I mean, how many Americans realize, tell us in the comments, by the way, how many Americans realize that the Israeli government has been a military occupier of Palestinian land for the last 60 to 70 years? Do people understand what military occupation means? I've been there. I've seen this myself. And that's what's being done here. Where Trump is trying to militarily occupy LA and DC. And you're in LA. Like, what's it like seeing the military out on the streets in broad daylight?
Oh, we don't. I mean, this is the thing. DC is having a really different experience than we are. But even when they were here, this is why it is such an insane waste of money. I mean, the ICE is separate. We see them everywhere. Everybody sees ICE everywhere. Yeah. But the military came and were in a 4-block square area for a few weeks, and then were quietly moved away. Huge waste of taxpayer money.
Yep.
Same with the National Guard. We don't see them because there's nothing for them to do.
Yep.
There is no crisis here. There never has been. So, but I can tell you that it still felt absolutely awful, like almost like a physical violation,
Yep.
having them sent to the city and going downtown and seeing them standing there with their massive assault weapons. Why? Yeah, why? Meanwhile,
Intimidation. Yeah.
I was just talking to someone yesterday who works at a VA hospital, and spoke to me way off the record because, of course, they're being threatened if they talk to anybody. But like, our VA hospitals are being gutted. VA veterans healthcare is being gutted. It is being taken apart with the intention of privatizing it. And meanwhile, how much do you think it's costing to occupy DC every day? How much is that costing? Enough to pay for a doctor at a VA? Like, how many doctors, how many nurses, how many support staff, since those have all been fired?
That's right.
It's
That's
it's a priorities question. It's always been a priorities question. And for
that's
the
all of it.
United States, whenever there's domestic trouble, the president goes to a war, and it's like an addiction. It's like an addiction in this country. War, power,
That's
weapons,
exactly right.
military spending.
And you probably saw the comment that Trump made to Zelensky when he said that, oh, Ukraine's been in war
Yeah.
and you suspended elections. Maybe in 2.5 years, if we're in war, I'll have to suspend the elections as well.
Mhm.
And folks, that's not a threat. That's a promise. He's not giving a hypothetical. He's telling you his plan. This is what he is going to do. He is going to start some kind of a fake war and try to extend his time in office because he knows that when he's out of office, he can be prosecuted. And if Democrats win the White House in 2028 and there is a Democratic AG with a spine, unlike Merrick Garland, that feckless coward, then that Democratic AG just might actually bring a gun to a gunfight and hold Trump accountable. So I'm seeing him announcing his plan to try to stay in office indefinitely. And that brings us to this conversation about gerrymandering
Yeah.
and what we're seeing happen in Texas. Now, the latest update I've heard is that they are going to try to filibuster it in the Senate. It already
Oh,
passed the House, and
okay.
they're trying to filibuster in the Senate. But what's going on in California with Gavin Newsom's response? What can you tell us about what's happening in California?
Well, Gavin Newsom is doing the only rational thing you can do in this moment. He
Yeah,
is saying if they're going to stop playing by any rules, if they're going to change the rules and play by, whatever you want to call them, no rules at all, or
yeah.
that it is insanity to think that we should stick with the old rules unless we just want to hand off the rest of our power. And I was just interviewing Texas Representative God, Hinaro, I think is the way you say her name. I'm not good at saying it, but she's wonderful. And she was saying it really is a matter of life or death. It is a matter of life or death. It is about whether we are able to stop the progress of Trump's authoritarian overreach. And there's real life or death. There's people behind that who will live or die based on whether or not we are able to flip the House. We're not going to start passing a bunch of good bills without the Senate and the presidency, but we can stop so much. And so it would be insane at this point to be like, all right, well, they're fighting with a gun and a knife and a machete and like a nuclear bomb. So I'm going to just keep my gloves on and
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane. And this is why I'm so angry at the California League of Women Voters because they've come out against this. And their statement is now being weaponized by some Republican donor who sent it out in the mail pretending to be left wing. And, we've
It,
got to be tougher and smarter right now. And Gavin
agreed.
Newsom is doing that.
Agreed. And I'm glad to see Newsom doing that. I think from what I understand, it's officially on the ballot in November as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Formalize it and make it happen. And this is the thing. I think you said it beautifully, Jess. There are no rules anymore. The rule book is out the window. And now it's a mad dash to protect democracy as best as we possibly can. It's like, I wish we would follow the rules. But remember, under Biden, Democrats voted unanimously for voting reform, which ensured an end to partisan gerrymandering.
Yep.
Republicans voted unanimously against it
Yep.
to protect partisan gerrymandering.
Yep.
Democrats voted unanimously to get corporate money out of politics.
Yep.
Republicans voted unanimously to keep corporate money in politics. And then the racist Jim Crow filibuster blocked it in the Senate. And this is one of my frustrations with Democrats under Biden. Why were you following the stupid rule book when Republicans weren't?
Right.
Blow up the filibuster, pass voting rights, protect voting rights. Because look, it's not just about the gerrymandering. And this is the point that I think elected Democrats, establishment Democrats don't seem to understand. It's also about the closing down of polling locations. Just, did you know this fact that since Shelby v. Holder in 2013, since the Supreme Court started to gut voting rights, at that time, there were about 210,000 polling locations in the country, throughout the
Mm.
country, so you could go vote. Now, there are only about 90,000 polling locations in the country because red states have shut them down disproportionately in Black and Latino neighborhoods.
Yeah, of course.
Think about how that impacts, especially as these elections are decided by 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 points. If you're making it 10% more difficult, 15% more difficult for Black and brown people to vote, what's going to happen? There's going to be a drop in voting. It's about the racist voter ID laws. Look, folks already show their ID when they register to vote.
Yeah.
What's happening with these racial voter ID laws is that, the right's narratives, oh, you think that Black and brown people are too dumb to get an ID card. No, we don't. What we think you're too racist to understand is that they've already shown their ID when they registered to vote, and you're passing racist voter ID laws because now you're requiring a new, different ID to
Yeah.
now vote when they've already registered. What is the point of that other than to suppress the vote? And there's just list after list, closing polls to the souls on Sundays, banning giving water to people in line, voter purges. There's an article in the New York Times that, why are so many Democrats purged from voting rolls? Is it because they're leaving the party? Well, partly, but mostly it's because the Republicans are purging the voter rolls. And you can't fix these problems simply by voting harder. We need Democrats in power who are going to be effective and in demanding this kind of meaningful accountability. And I know a lot of the work you do, Jess, is to get folks activated and organized. What are some of the calls to action you see here that we should be doing right now to encourage Democrats in power to take more aggressive action like Newsom is right now?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is, first of all, I had an action in my newsletter today to contact Gavin Newsom and thank him. And it
Yeah.
sounds little and dumb, but we spend a lot of time criticizing Democrats. We're all very critical on our side, and we criticize them for not fighting enough. So when someone does fight, it's really important that we circle the wagons behind them and say, thank you. Thank you. I understand Gavin Newsom is not perfect. That is beside the point right now. He is fighting. So
Yeah.
thanking him, calling our other Democratic lawmakers, our governors, if we have them, our Congress members, and just saying, I love what Gavin Newsom is doing. More like that. Think outside of the box, strategize, work together to just keep telling them over and over again, we want to see you fight. But I also think we as individuals have to be willing to go out there and fight ourselves. I think that right now, street action is really important. It is really important for people to be planning on turning out on Labor Day for the next big protest. Going out if you're in DC, this footage we're seeing of people in DC protesting, it's hugely important. To see people protesting in Texas, it matters. Any little bit of civil disobedience we can do, putting a sign out in front of our house that says fuck ICE, whatever it is, just to show that we're not afraid, even if we feel a little afraid, to show courage, to show solidarity with other communities. That's a very important thing to do right now. It matters, I think, a lot more than people realize. Because remember, and then I'll pass it back to you, but Trump is really unpopular right now. I actually saw a TikTok by Jamel Bowie the other day who was talking about this. He's a really unpopular president. His approval rating is hovering somewhere between like 41% and 38%.
Yeah.
But the strong approval, according to Jamel Bowie and the numbers he was looking at, was 27% strongly approve of him.
Yeah.
That's low.
Yeah.
And on the inflation, he's underwater by 26, 27 points. Yep. So he's not a popular guy. And at some point, if we keep pushing on our side, he keeps getting less popular. The consequences are going to be the consequences. The economy is going to keep crashing. More people are going to get food poisoning. More, all of the measles epidemics. So Americans are going to see all of that. And at some point, there will be a tipping point. There will. I agree. Know there will, right?
I agree. I mean, I want to say a couple of things. I can't agree with you strongly enough regarding we have to give our elected officials their flowers when they do something right. It's important. It can't just be a bash fest every single time. Look, we're active, we're voters, we're citizens. We absolutely have the right to be critical of our elected officials. And we have to also recognize when they do something right so they know that their work is being appreciated. And I hope I'm not being too forward in pointing this out, but Gavin Newsom has made some pretty nasty comments about trans people, and you have a trans child, and for you to recognize and that there's you can be critical of him about these really insanely stupid remarks, but also give credit where it's due. I think speaks to your integrity and speaks to your commitment to uplifting our country. So thank you for that. I want to give you your flowers for being able to do that very thoughtfully. The second thing I'll point out is that Matt Pritchett just made a comment in the comments that nonviolent protests are needed now more than ever.
Yes.
And I've seen people express frustration that nonviolence is not enough. We need to take to the streets. And, James Baldwin talked about this. He goes, we can't go out with guns because they have more guns than us.
Yeah. Totally.
We can't get violent because they will get even more violent. They're waiting for that. We need better strategies at disrupting in a peaceful way. And he was exactly right. And there's actually been immense and detailed studies done on this, that nonviolent protests of 3.5% or more from a country is typically all you need. Sustained nonviolent protests of 3.5% or more is all you need to stop an autocratic regime from taking hold. And in this country, that means somewhere around 15 million people, which, again, it's a lot of people, but is it, right? We're a country of 340 million people. Can we
Yeah.
get 15 million of us to get out there and say enough is enough? I think we can. And that's my ask of everyone here. As you're, watching us, if you haven't subscribed to Jess, subscribe to Jess because she gives some great updates. If you haven't subscribed to me, subscribe to me because I'm providing human rights content on what actions you can take. This is the kind of support we need, especially as we see corporate media capitulate. I don't know if you saw the headline today out of the Washington Post. Disgusting headline. Ghislaine Maxwell tells Department of Justice she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. And they're running with it as if a convicted child sex trafficker should be quoted and celebrated on the front pages. I mean, just the capitulation of corporate media is disgusting. And all of this is to distract and to hope we forget that Trump is very likely, actually, we know for a fact, in the Epstein files.
No.
What's your take on that fiasco?
She's a rapist herself, right? Like, that woman is one of the most loathsome human beings to live in our lifetimes. Not only did she traffic young girls, she sexually assaulted them as well.
Yep.
And she's perjured herself. We know she's perjured herself before. So at this moment, to lead with that headline as if there's even a possibility that she would tell the truth when a pardon is being dangled,
Yep.
Give me a fucking break. It's unbelievable. But the Washington Post lost it a long time ago. Like, I stopped subscribing, a year ago, whenever they declined to endorse Kamala Harris. They have lost it.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, corporate media is broken. It is just very, very important. Going back to your question about violent protests, no, I think that's an insane idea. Totally self-defeating. They're dying for us to get violent. Are you kidding? Even when we're not violent, they lie and say we are. If we become violent, the Fox News viewers who are already afraid of their own shadow, they're terrified of everything. The Republicans love to activate their fear center. Like, there have been studies that Republican-leaning voters and left-leaning voters, their brains are different. And people who vote conservatively are more afraid anyway. And then Republican politicians, play on that. They play on that. And so, we get violent. Oh, great. Where's that going to go? Not to mention, they do. They're always going to have more guns than us. I also just personally hate violence. So I get comments every once in a while. We need another... what's his name? The guy who is in prison for killing the United Healthcare guy. We need more of him. I'm like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
No, we don't. No, we don't. I don't endorse that. We need, because it just won't work. Like, what will work is what you said, as Erica Chenoweth has said, the 3.5%, but it's got to be sustained. And I think that's the thing people forget. It's not one protest. It's not two protests. It's sustained. This takes time. And I think Americans are very impatient. And I understand we're exhausted. We want this to be over. But we let this guy into office. And now it is going to take time to dislodge him. I believe we will. I really do. In my heart of hearts, I believe we're going to win. But we're going to have to be very tenacious. And even though we're exhausted, we're going to have to keep trudging.
I always point out, beautifully said, Jess, I always point out that we've been here before as a country. Jim Crow America was an apartheid nation. The majority of this country's history has been genocide, enslavement, and apartheid. That's just a fact that they're trying to erase with this Prager University propaganda and nonsense. But that's just the cold, hard facts that for the first 200 years of this country's establishment, notwithstanding the colonizers before then, this country, this nation was built on the genocide of one people, the enslavement of another, and the apartheid of anyone non-white straight male.
Yeah.
And that's just a harsh truth and reality. I've often said this, that if the people who suffered Jim Crow are still with us, and women who were denied financial autonomy are still with us, and Asian Americans who were denied the right to immigrate are still with us, and Indigenous elders who suffered genocide are still with us, and LGBTQ Americans who suffered violence for who they are still with us, then why do you think that the people and systems that enable these atrocities are magically gone?
Yeah. Right.
They're still very much there. And if you
Yeah.
think they're gone, then you are turning a blind eye to what's happening. And that's why it's so critical that this the point that you made about being sustained in our efforts is so important. And the other comment you made that always makes me laugh is that these right wingers are literally they play tough guy, alpha male macho, but they really are afraid of their own shadow. I can't
Yeah.
remember which congressman or Republican it was who said that. Yeah, I took my family to DC and I
Oh,
saw
yeah.
a bunch of wild teenagers on ATVs, and one of them even popped a wheelie. So you'll have to excuse me if I don't believe the data that DC is safe. Like, give me, give me a
Yeah.
break, dude.
Yeah.
That's what you're afraid of? Somebody popping a wheelie? It's ridiculous. It would be comical if it wasn't so real, and if they didn't have access to the nuclear codes. Um, what are we doing now? We got about I got like another 10 minutes or so before we got a break. But what's your advice to folks now? Because I know you get a lot of questions from people. What are the one or two things you're asking them to do, especially as we're coming into fall pretty soon. You know, I don't like saying it, but midterms are going to start. There's a couple of elections coming up this November as well. What is your focus? What are you trying to push people into doing right now?
Right. That's a good question. There's a saying in recovery circles, different circles than these circles, but it's work the program, not the problem, right? So I like to say that to people in my newsletter. So we know the problems are everywhere, right? And they feel very large, very intractable, overwhelming. But we know what the program is. We know what the program of action is, more or less, right? And in this case, what I recommend to people, we're all going to have moments where we feel really anxious and just really like, oh my God. It's just a very simple question. We turn back to, what can I do right now? What can I do today? And there's so many opportunities to help here in Los Angeles. We can sign up to volunteer with ICE patrols. There are all these things. But these elections coming up in November, I think are hugely important. We have elections in New Jersey for legislature and governor. We have elections in Virginia for the legislature and for governor. We've got the New York mayoral, right? Which I think is obviously hugely important symbolically as well as for New York. We've got the California amendment. These are all coming up in November. Everybody should be getting on board, grabbing a race. You can say, I'm going to adopt New Jersey. I'm going to adopt California. But do something. Because if we win all of these elections, and I believe we will, I believe we're going to win all of them, right? But I'm not just going to say that and then go put my feet up somewhere. I will be working my ass off on it. And I know a lot of you are going to join me. If we win all of those elections and we win them by commanding margins, which we can, that sends a message to Republican lawmakers. They've been watching, Democratic margins go up. And this is at a time when Democrats have never been so unpopular. And
Yeah.
still, we are outperforming Republicans, our previous performances by like 15 points. So if
Yes.
they see us continuing to do extraordinarily well, one can hope that at some point they will become more afraid of our voters than they are of being primaried, which I guess is their big fear, or of
Yes.
standing up to Trump. Like at some point, his popularity is going to keep going down. And if our victory margins keep going up, there may be a point at which Republicans finally say, okay, I see the writing on the wall and I'm going to stand up to him. But even if they don't, every race we win is wind in our sails, more power in our team and in our army. And it will give you something to do and something to focus on. And you will feel so much more empowered if you get involved in an election. Phone bank, write postcards, give money, talk to people who live in those states. Just help us win.
That's right. And just to emphasize this point, no one person needs to be Neo from the Matrix and take on the entire machine on your own.
No.
It's about what you're doing on the local level and being consistent on the local level, and that adds up. And if you don't know where to begin, start with your local NAACP. Start with your local Democratic Party organization. Start with your local city council. Your local Moms Demand
Yeah.
chapter. There's so many local organizations that are already doing great work that you can get involved. I also want to point out to our friends on the fence who I don't know why you're still on the fence. It's pretty obvious who Trump is right now. But look at the way he treats his own former allies. I don't know if you saw this, Jess, but guess whose home got raided by the FBI this morning?
Oh yeah, I saw. Yeah.
John Bolton. I mean,
Yeah.
one of his chief advisors, one former national security advisor, his home gets raided by Trump and his cronies because he's pissed Trump off. This is not what a very stable genius does. This is what an aspiring autocrat, a mafia boss, does. And he's telling us, is, this is the whole leopards eating your face meme, right? About the woman who cries, "I never thought the leopards would eat my face," when she voted for the leopards eating faces party.
Hmm.
That's what's happening. And I think we have an opportunity. This is my frustration with, Mitch McConnell and Mueller and Merrick Garland and these
Right.
people who all had the chance to hold
Yeah.
him accountable and didn't. This is our chance as the American people to hold him accountable. And I just want to reemphasize again, we're not asking anyone to be the martyr. We're asking folks to just be consistent and to get their neighbors involved. I can't tell you how many of my friends reach out to me because they trust me simply because I'm out there and doing the work. They don't
Yeah.
may not have the time or the mental energy or even the financial ability to donate, and that's fine. But they're like, you know what? I see you out there, and for that reason alone, I'm going to vote. Tell me who to vote for and why, and I'll vote. And if every person, I mean, there's what 700 people watching this. If every person here gets 10 people, that's 7,000 people that didn't vote last time that will vote this time. And it has a ripple effect. Um, Jess, closing thoughts going into the weekend. Let's do something a little bit lighter now. What makes you happy in these difficult times? What's your guilty pleasure during these difficult times?
Oh God, guilty pleasure is TV for sure. I mean, I have to watch something pretty dumb at night so that I can kind of take my brain off things. So MJ and I got sucked into a show called Blind Spot that has like six seasons, 20 episodes in every season. It's not the best show, but it's really detached from reality, and that sort of helps me. I'm also we are going to adopt a new cat in the next week or two because my poor cat Walter got out and got by the coyotes. So that's what we're doing. What about you?
Sorry to hear that about your cat. I love cats. I'm deathly allergic to cats, but I love
Yeah,
cats.
yeah,
And I used to have a cat that after like 3 months, my allergies subsided. I think my body just got used to it,
yeah.
which was cool. But then he died, and I've been sad ever since. So I don't want to get another cat because of that. I don't watch any TV just because I don't have time.
Mm,
But when I do, I will binge watch. And the last two shows I binge watched were a sci-fi show called The Expanse. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't. No. Mm,
If you like sci-fi, it's phenomenal. The
okay.
Expanse, it's so good. I loved every season of it. And then because I'm an 80s and 90s kid, the reboot of The Karate Kid was fun to watch
Oh,
as well.
all right.
So if you haven't seen that reboot, but my I wouldn't really call it a guilty pleasure, but I have become addicted to pickleball over the last year,
Oh
and
yes.
so I'm playing pickleball a lot, and I'm training for the Chicago Half Marathon right now. So those are my
Oh, that's
two,
great.
yeah, those are my two releases, like stress releases. It's just there's something about going for a run for me that's always been a lot of fun
Yeah.
and gratifying. Um,
Exercise is important right now. I'm forcing myself to do it. I hate it, but it's for mental health. It's really important right now.
It's so important. And like and you got kids, I got kids. It's one of those things where it's so easy for me to get my kids off their devices and saying, "Hey, dad's going for a run. Why
Yeah.
don't you guys ride your bikes with me? Or why don't you guys go outside and play? Let's see who can be outside longer, you playing out in the yard or me running." It's just, it's great for them to see me. Hopefully they see me leading by example.
Yeah.
Although my 9-year-old will troll me. She asked me why I follow Miss Rachel
Uh-huh.
on social media. And I said, why do you think? And she very thoughtfully said, because Miss Rachel supports all babies, including Palestinian babies. I'm like, yeah, you got it. And then I said, Miss Rachel follows your dad as well. And she goes, oh my God, I can't believe someone who is actually famous follows my dad.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So kids will humble you, but I love it, every bit of it. Jess, thank you for all you do. I appreciate you. For everyone who subscribes to me and has not subscribed to Jess yet, please do. She does phenomenal work, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you have any paywall on your content
Yeah.
either. I don't either. You can become a paid subscriber if you'd like. More power to you. And if not, that's fine too. But just stay engaged because we need as many voices involved as possible. And Jess, I'll give you the last word to close it out.
Yeah, well, first of all, if you're one of my subscribers, please, the reverse goes for Qasim as well. Please subscribe if you can. He's so wonderful. And I encourage us to all remember that we don't have to feel hopeful to act hopeful right now. Like hope, it's a feeling sometimes. It feels good to feel hopeful, but like hope for me really is an action. So as I take action, I find my hope again. So I know that things feel very bleak right now, but sometimes the way things feel and then what is actually about to happen can be very different. We just don't know. But please don't give up. Please remember how many of us there are. There are way more of us than there are of them. And remember that in historically speaking, these kinds of movements, what Trump is trying to do, they generally do not succeed. Generally, the people come back, and especially in the United States. We're very obnoxious people in lots of ways, but we're defiant. We do like our freedom, and I believe that those traits can really come to serve us in this moment. So stick together, join a group, join an individual group, join or some other thing so that you're not alone. Come to lives to be in community with people like us and other people you like, and just like one day at a time, we will get through this. That's what I hope you'll take away.
Amen, my friend. Amen, my friend. Thank you all. Have a wonderful and safe weekend and stay engaged. Much love to all of you. Peace out.
Thanks for having me, Kasim. Bye.